All right, what's up, everyone? Josh Weber here, CEO of Big Red Jelly. Today, we're going to talk about brand discovery, okay, which is in our Big Red Jelly proven process. It's the first chapter of our brand phase, right? There's 10 chapters in our proven brand process that helps brands, companies, entrepreneurs, startups build a strong and lasting brand. Don't get me started on how important it is to have a strong brand, especially in today's competitive market. But we're going to dive deeper into the first chapter again, which is brand discovery. Okay. Okay. So first, reviewing the proven process, right? For the brand phase in particular, as mentioned, we're going to dive deeper into brand discovery, which you can see sets the stage, and that's a little bit of a hint for the acronym that I'm going to use for the rest of the brand building process. So you can do this on your own if you are a business owner, a marketer, a creative, an entrepreneur, a co-founder, a founder, what have you. It's important to do a brand discovery. Okay, you can do this even after you think your brand has already been created. As many of us know, creating a strong brand is not a one and done process, right? It is something that you should constantly be doing. Every action that you take in your company will either positively or negatively impact your brand, right? And your brand being the perception that your ideal customer has of what you do or your business. So it's everything, right? The brand is everything. So let's talk about how to do an effective brand discovery. An effective brand discovery, when done correctly, will set the stage for those following chapters that I showed you, and we will have videos about those chapters so you can do it on your own as well. Brand research being the next chapter. So a lot of times entrepreneurs or business owners or marketers or creatives or what have you, brand strategists will jump right to research without doing discovery. And the way that I like to explain the difference between discovery and research is that discovery is very subjective, right? Meaning it's subject to your opinions. It's very opinionated. It's meant to be focused on what's your vision, what are your goals, right? What's your opinion about this? What are your emotions? Why did you start this company, right? So it's about gathering information. It's very subjective information. That then sets the stage for brand research, which is very objective. This is where we step aside from the opinions and we do qualitative research, quantitative research. We look at the data, we do interviews, we look at reviews, we look at your analytics, and we start to gather, well, what are these numbers telling us? And by bringing those two worlds together, it will give you a clear picture by which you can put together your brand guiding idea, which is a topic for another time. So let's get into stage, and I will take center stage here. And let's go through what each of these letters stand for. Okay, so stage stands for, I'm not going to give all of them right out of the gate. The first letter is S, that stands for sector. Okay, so for us at Big Red Jelly, and when I'm working with a client, and you can ask yourself the same questions, do a discovery specific to your sector, your vertical, or your industry. Right? If I'm in a plumbing company, then I should understand that industry, right? Hopefully you do, but there's always more to learn here. I'm going to give you some tactics, right? Are you a B2B company? Are you a B2C company? Are you B2B2C, right? Are you something else? Are you e-commerce? What's your average order value, right? Are you a high ticket, meaning an expensive product or service? Are you more on the affordable side, okay? Is your sector or vertical geographic specific, i.e. you have a brick and mortar restaurant, right? So you're really trying to focus in on a certain mile radius. Are you an online business, right? Another question you can ask yourself here is what type of brand are you in your sector or industry? For example, Red Bull, they position themselves as not so much a product or drink company, they're a lifestyle brand, right? They don't sell drinks, they sell the experience. Thus, the content you see on their YouTube, right? People doing backflips on skis and paragliding under a bridge or what have you. That is a lifestyle that comes from drinking the brand Red Bull, right? Much like Amazon really positions itself as speed and efficiency. Even their website design is set up that way, right? With the one-click checkout, the Prime delivery. It's meant to be quick and efficient. That is their brand purpose. That's their brand promise. So you should first be discovering as much as you can, especially if you're an agency or a freelancer and you're doing work for another company. This is feedback I give our brand strategists, our brand team all the time, which is you need to dive full in. Okay, you need to dive head first into the industry. You need to become a plumber. You need to understand the plumbing industry, the jargon, right? What's the jargon? What are the pain points for companies in that space? For example, we do a lot of branding work for construction companies. I know just by working with so many of them that one of their primary pain points isn't necessarily new projects or new deals or new sales all the time. That's obviously a goal. But one of their biggest pain points is recruiting, right? It's hiring, recruiting, and training top talent so that they can perform and get those projects done on time and on scope, right? So that sets the stage for a more effective brand research and understanding what the pain points are. So the first letter is sector. You've got to understand the industry inside and out. The second letter, T, okay, stands for targets. This is going to be synonymous with competitors, okay? So I don't typically like to overemphasize competitors because I think a lot of agencies and creatives will obsess over who the competitors are a little bit too much. And what that might end up doing, even subconsciously, is start to design and build a brand that's too similar to the competitors. But I do like to be aware of who the other players are. It's also important, I'll give you a quick tactic here when you're discovering who the targets or the competitors are, is to understand who your primary competitors are and your secondary competitors. For example, we did a brand, we helped build a brand for a college, okay? And their primary competitors are pretty obvious to them, right? When we asked who are your primary competitors, we started to list off other colleges in the area, in the same state, right? There was a community college over here, there's a technical college over here, there's these 3 universities over here that other students apply to or transfer from. Those are the obvious primary competitors. But who do you think are the secondary competitors for a higher education brand, right? Think YouTube University. Think Udemy. Think just doing it on your own. Think about all the challenges or the reasons that a potential student wouldn't want to go to college, right? Price, time, flexibility, family duties. Maybe they're served in the military. They don't know how to get started. Maybe they dropped out and it's been several years since they've even thought about getting an education. So all these secondary competitors can start to bubble up to the top. It's really important to explore who your secondary competitors or targets are, right? For example, if you're a restaurant owner, the obvious competitors or targets are other restaurants in the same geographic area. You could dive deeper into what are other restaurants that serve the same type of food or at the same price point as us. Those are very primary competitors, right? But then secondary competitors would be, right, cooking on your own, DoorDash or Uber Eats from somewhere else, just not eating at all, right? It might be your price point. It might be the actual place that you're geographically located in. Maybe it's tough to see. What are these secondary competitors or reasons that your ideal customer might not choose you? Okay. So sector, then targets. So what's your industry, your vertical, and then what are the other important players in that sector, right? The third letter is A, which stands for audience, but I want to add a level of specificity here. I always like to say ideal customer or client. I typically lean away from who's your target audience, who's your persona. I once had a mentor of mine explain it in a very eloquent way, which is when you put together these personas, which can be helpful sometimes, but when you put together that persona of little Becky and you have their demographics, their psychographics, their behavioral trends and what have you, oftentimes what you end up with is a very specific document, a persona that describes exactly nobody. That person doesn't exist. And so I think we've lost touch with, look, there are actual real customers out there that have done business with you. When's the last time that you've interviewed them or talked to them? Right? It's the Pareto principle. Most likely, 20% of your customer base is responsible for 80% of your revenue, right? And on the flip side, you've got probably 20% of your customers that cause 80% of your headaches. So you can start to identify, well, who is that 20% of my audience? Who's that tribe that I should really be interviewing? I should be part of that tribe. You should be talking to them. You should be getting their feedback, understanding why they choose you over and over and over again, right? They are the answer. So that's my biggest suggestion for your audience is identify who is that 20% that's responsible for 80% of your revenue. Who is that 20% of your customer base that keeps coming back, that refers their friends or family, that leaves you positive reviews? Talk to them, right? So audience. So sector, targets, audience. The fourth letter is G, which stands for goals, right? Ideally, now this isn't in any particular order. I like to, when I do brand discovery with a new brand or a client of Big Red Jellies, I like to start with goals, right? Again, very subjective, right? What are your goals? What is your vision for the company? What are your long-term goals? I like to start there, right? Where do you see your company in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years and beyond? What's your exit strategy? Why are we building a brand in the first place? You can see if you skip this step, you're just going to go down the wrong track entirely because you're not building a brand that's meant to help them achieve those goals. Okay? Some tactics I recommend here are interviewing key stakeholders. If possible, the best case scenario is talking to the founders, right? Why did you start this company? And I often like to say, hey, why does this company exist? And you're not allowed to give me any P&L or balance sheet answer here, meaning you can't tell me like to make money. That's inferred. I assume that's why you're doing it. But what's the greater purpose, right? Let's get a little bit emotional here. What gets you fired up to get out of bed in the morning? And open that up a little. This is meant to be, discovery is meant to be a little bit more on the emotional side. Get the opinions, right? Get the debates, right? Argue early is a good tactic here in discovery. So sector, targets, audience, goals. The final stage, which I think is the most forgotten in an effective brand discovery, is evolution, right? In other words, it's synonymous with trends. So after you've learned about the sector, the industry, the vertical, what I see as a common mistake from brand strategists is they don't look forward to, well, what does this industry look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How is AI going to impact this industry? What are we seeing as consumer trends in the vertical, right? For example, COVID really pushed, it accelerated some trends that we never saw coming for many small businesses, right? Even large businesses, meaning many companies were almost forced to be more digital, be more online. You saw a lot more hopping onto DoorDash. You saw a lot more brands or companies offering e-commerce solutions or online options for their product or service, which was the silver lining, right? A lot of companies kind of woke up to that. So ask yourself in this vertical, in this space, where is it going, right? What are the trends saying here? You can also look at the demographics. So for example, millennials are quickly moving into being the majority consumer base in the United States. So how do millennials act? What are their buying patterns? What do they value? Next up is Gen Z. Next up after Gen Z is Gen Alpha, right? I'll tell you right now, generally speaking, and you have to kind of look at generalizations here, but Gen Z really values transparency, authenticity, and they will choose and purchase from brands that they feel like have similar values. So you'll see a lot of smart brands out there start to be more transparent with their even political, financial, social kind of movements that they're aligned with. Like take, for example, Patagonia, right? Or Tom's. And there's this greater purpose behind the brand. And so these younger buyers and consumers align with those values and they will choose that brand, right? Even if it's more expensive. So you can use this to your advantage in building a strong brand. Really, really, really important to ask yourself, where is this industry going? So if you're working with a client or a customer, or you are the business owner, hopefully that's part of your job as the CEO or the founder or decision maker, is what does this industry look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now and beyond? And you can go through those filters that I just mentioned, right? How is technology going to change this industry? How do we stay ahead of that trend? What are these younger generations going to be looking for or valuing so that I can position myself in the right place looking forward? What does the economy or the market look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Are there going to be new competitors, primary and secondary, that are going to enter my market that I should be aware of, right? Are there international trends that are happening, right? Is globalization going to affect you in any way, shape, or form? So ideally, when you do a brand discovery too, what you'll start to recognize are what are the true differentiators for your brand so that you can be different, right? And that's an old adage that I like to use over and over and over again. It's easier and better to look for ways to be different than to look for ways to be better. Be different, right? That's what will cut through the noise. Everyone's just trying to be, I'm better at this. Instead, ask yourself, how are we different, right? So at the end of the day, you're trying to form this Venn diagram of kind of three circles. What are we the best in the world at? What could we be the best in the world at? That's circle number one. Circle number two is who are my primary, secondary competitors and what are they best at? Okay, and be intellectually honest there. And then the third circle is who is my ideal customer and what do they value? And if you can find that overlap between what you are truly best at and what your ideal customer really values, and your competitors are not best at or not as good as you, that is the winning zone. That's where you should play. That's where you should position your brand. So hopefully you got some key takeaways here. Discovery is so key, and it sets the stage for brand discovery and a foundation on which you can build a world-class brand that, again, cuts through the noise and allows you to grow better, faster, and further. Tune in next time, you guys, and let's continue to build world-class brands together. Thank you.